On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the interim UFC heavyweight title fight taking place at UFC 304 between champion Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blaydes. My name is James Lynch. If you never watched a show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles. Then I'm going to give you my prediction at the end. Some of the stuff may have relevance to you. It may not. That's for you to decide. But I want to hear your prediction in the comments when we're done. I don't just want to hear a pick. I want to hear how you think this fight plays out. Of course, this is the co-main event. I kind of forgot about that. Usually the heavier fighters are in the main event, but I'm guessing because this is an interim title, they put it as the co-main event. But I can't wait for this fight. The rematch, Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blaydes, it's going to be great. As we always do, let's do a quick tail of the tape of these two fighters right now. You can see Tom Aspinall, 14-3 record, Curtis Blaydes 18-4, 31 years old to 33, 6'5" to 6'4", 78-inch reach for Aspinall, 80-inch reach for Curtis Blaydes. So Blaydes can have a bit of a reach advantage. Aspinall's like a little bit taller, and Blaydes is a little bit older as well. Let's start first with the current interim UFC heavyweight champion, Tom Aspinall. And let me just say before I get into this whole breakdown, this should really be for the undisputed title. This whole Jon Jones-Stipe thing, I don't know why they're so hell-bent on it. Well, I know why, because Jones wants one more fight, and then that's it. And he wants to fight Stipe. And I get it, because Stipe's a much, in my opinion, easier fight at this stage in Stipe's career than Tom Aspinall would be. And there's more, there's more cachet with beating Stipe just because he was a long-time heavyweight champion for the UFC. But in my opinion, this is the real heavyweight title fight, so I'm going to treat it as such. So let's talk about Tom Aspinall. Mentioned it there, 31 years old, 14-3 record. Forgot to mention as well, this is a 5-round fight, and this is going to be taking place at the Co-op Live in Manchester. So I mentioned there, Aspinall, his record, he's got 11 knockouts, 3 submissions, and 0 decisions. He is 31 years old. I mentioned it there, 6'5" with a 78-inch reach. So he's 2 years younger and have a 1-inch height advantage in this fight. He's a BJJ black belt. He's got the shortest average fight time in UFC history at 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Very impressive because he's got a couple of UFC fights. He's got performance of the night 6 times against Jake Collier, Andrei Arlovski, Sergey Spivak, Alexander Volkov, Marcin Tybura, and Sergey Pavlovich. Aspinall made his amateur debut way back in May of 2013, made his pro debut in December of 2014. Forgot to mention as an amateur going undefeated at 5-0. Made his UFC debut in July of 2020, which was the win over Jake Collier back in the day. Aspinall's 7-1 in the UFC. He's got 6 stoppage wins. Some notable wins include Andrei Arlovski, Alexander Volkov, Marcin Tybura, and Sergey Pavlovich. The only loss he has is Curtis Blaydes. We'll talk about that. 15 seconds. It was mainly a knee injury. You can see it there. That's why we're getting this rematch. I don't really feel like we saw much in that first fight. Excited to see this fight take place. Aspinall, in his short UFC career, because again, he's only had, how many fights? Like I mentioned, came in 2020. He's only had one. He's had 8 fights. So I shouldn't say short, because 8 fights is decent as far as being in the UFC, but hasn't had many layoffs. He had a big layoff going from Curtis Blaydes to Tybura. Obviously, there was the knee injury there. There was a 364-day layoff. And then going from Pavlovich to this fight, there's only a 259-day layoff. Not too extensive, but just wanted to mention that anyways. Aspinall, you can see there, has never gone the distance in his UFC career, so he's never been in any controversial fights. And Aspinall's UFC stats are very impressive. Let's go take a look here. Significant strikes landed per minute, 7.72. That is awesome. Striking accuracy is at 66%. Striking defense is at 66%, so not getting hit that much. Takedown average 3.46, although we'll see if he goes for any in this fight, probably not. And his takedown accuracy and takedown defense is at 100%, but that's just because no one's been able to take him down. His sub average is 1.7, but if I'm guessing that Aspinall is probably going to use more of a stand up. One other quick thing I'm just going to mention, I hear some people calling Aspinall overrated. I couldn't disagree more. Look, some of these earlier wins, Jake Collier, Badeau, these were not mainstays in the UFC. Arlovski's been in the UFC for a while, but let's be honest, not an amazing win there. Spivak's a ranked opponent. That's a good win. He's one of the only guys to finish Volkov, right? Like in the UFC, and he finished him in the first round. That's extremely impressive. And then, finishing Tybura, finishing Pavlovich. I know people will, again, because there's just some weird, I've seen some comments leading into this fight, people saying that, Aspinall's overrated and his wins aren't good. And I know the haters will come in and say, oh, well, Pavlovich just lost to Volkov. That's not a good win. Well, what about him finishing Volkov? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a good win. Pavlovich was a good win too. The fact that he stood and traded with Pavlovich, who we've seen knock out a lot of good fighters, I think speaks volumes to how good Aspinall is. He is, I don't use this too often when it comes to breaking down fighters, but Aspinall is a special talent. I mean, he can do it all. He's fast. He looks like a light, he looks like a middleweight or light heavyweight out there in the heavyweight division. He's got a great ground game and he's got a great stand-up. Like, he is the total package here as far as a fighter. So again, I love watching Tom Aspinall fight. I don't get the hate. This isn't even a guy who's like, being cocky or anything like that. So just wanted to throw that out there as kind of a side note as far as what I think of Tom Aspinall, one of the best fighters we've ever seen in the octagon, in my opinion, and a good test here in Curtis Blaydes. But let's talk about his opponent, Curtis Razor Blaydes, one of the nicest fighters you'll ever meet. I've been interviewing Curtis dating back to when he fought in RFA. Great dude. Happy to see him get this opportunity, and he's going to do so in enemy territory. So I mentioned there, Curtis Blaydes, 18-4 with 1 no contest. We'll talk about the no contest in a second. It's kind of BS. He's got 13 knockouts, no submissions, and 5 decisions. Curtis Blaydes is the number 4th ranked heavyweight. He's 33 years old, and he's 6'4" with an 80-inch reach. He'll have a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's a BJJ blue belt, trains at an Elevation Fight Team, or whatever that team's called out in Colorado. He's got performance of the night 4 times against Cody East, Alistair Overeem, Chris Daukaus, and Jalton Almeida. He's also got the most takedowns landed in UFC heavyweight division history at 62. So I think it's fair to say Curtis Blaydes the best wrestler in the division. That's what's going to be interesting in this fight. Can he get a takedown on Tom Aspinall, who I mentioned their 100% takedown rate, but a lot of guys really haven't attempted. They've tried to just basically finish Tom Aspinall there as well. Blaydes has had a long career. Amateur debut was in September of 2012, made his MMA debut in May of 2014, and then made his UFC debut in April of 2016 against Francis Ngannou, which looking back now, like talk about a tough UFC debut. That might be worth a video doing in the future for me, is looking at the toughest UFC debuts that people have had. Curtis Blaydes is definitely going to be on that list, having to fight Francis Ngannou. He's 12-4 in the UFC. He's got, with 1 no contest, he's got 6 stoppage victories. Realistically, he should be 12-3. Sorry, he should be 12 and he should be 13-3. The Adam Milstead no contest was due to marijuana. You guys know I've spoke very much on this. That's not the reason he won this fight, was because he had some marijuana in his system. So, Blaydes really should be 13-4 instead of, sorry, not 13-4. I'm getting my numbers mixed up. My math was never my strong suit. He should be 19-4 is what I'm getting at, not 18-4 with 1 no contest. Just wanted to mention that because, again, when you look at the record, you think, oh, well, maybe he doesn't have as many, great wins. He's got a lot of good wins. Let's go over them. Alexei Oleinik, Mark Hunt, Alistair Overeem. I mean, a lot of these guys were ranked. I don't know if Oleinik was ever ranked, but still very dangerous on the ground. Junior Dos Santos, the former champ, although not quite the same JDS that was in his prime. He's got a win over Volkov as well. He beat him by decision, didn't finish him there. Rosenstruik, Chris Daukaus, I believe at one point was ranked, but again, we won't count that as a notable win. Technically as a win over Aspinall, but like I mentioned, more of an injury. And the Almeida fight was great. So first round, if you remember that fight, Almeida was just basically ragdolling Curtis Blaydes. We're like, is this going to happen for all 3 rounds? Second round, Blaydes gets out there, hits him, lands a bunch of hammer fists and win the fight. Very impressive. And that was earlier this year. There's a lot of pressure on Blaydes as well, coming off the loss to Pavlovich, fighting this really hungry, up-and-coming Brazilian in Jalton Almeida, and he goes out there and finishes him in the second round. So well-deserved opportunity here against Tom Aspinall. And then if you look at his losses, they're all the same knockout losses. This was a doctor stoppage due to an eye thing, so there was that. He got knocked out by Ngannou. Lewis knocked him out cold. And then obviously Pavlovich with the ground and pound. So people talk about how he has a lot of knockout losses. As far as him being out cold and it was really bad, the Lewis one was probably the worst. The other ones, Ngannou and Pavlovich, he got up after. So it wasn't a case of he's knocked out cold. Just want to give some context there. Although it is very concerning that all of his losses have been by knockout. You look at it there, 4 losses by knockouts. He's never lost by submission or decision. So that is one thing to keep in mind in a guy like Aspinall, who has knockout power. He's had 1 layoff in his career that was going from Pavlovich to Aspinall to Pavlovich. There was a 273-day layoff. And then, other than that, he had a bit of a layoff going from Pavlovich to Almeida, which I forgot to write down. Let's figure out the exact. By the way, if you ever want to figure out dates and stuff, this is a good one. We'll do this in real time. So when Blaydes fought Pavlovich, that was in April of 2023. So if you go here, April, what was the date? April 22nd, 2023. And so he fought Almeida in March 9th of this year. So how long of a layoff was that? So I think probably one of his longest layoffs. Yeah, 322 days. So again, bit of a layoff coming into that fight. But this fight, obviously, he's fought sooner than Aspinall has, right? Going from Almeida to Aspinall, not much of a layoff at all. Blaydes hasn't had any major injuries or anything like that that's kept him out of fights or anything that's made him withdraw from fights. And he's obviously never had any close fights. He's won by decision, but they were all pretty much unanimous as far as Blaydes' performances. Let's look at Blaydes' stats here quickly. You can see their significant strikes landed per minute, a lot less than Aspinall, 3.53. His striking accuracy is at 50%. Striking defense is at 59%. So he does get hit a bit. And then his takedown average is 5.72. We'll see if he can get any takedowns on Aspinall in this fight. His takedown accuracy is at 53%, and his takedown defense is at 31%. But I don't think Aspinall's going to take him down, although he might. We'll see how this one plays out. Let's look at the odds right now, as we always do. Most books having Tom Aspinall almost a 3-1 favorite. I think the odds are fine here. I get it. I think Aspinall, like I mentioned at the top, I think he is the real deal. I completely understand him being the favorite here. And then if you look on Tapology, a much bigger gap as far as fan voting, 91% of people picking Aspinall, 9% picking Blaydes. All right, what is my prediction for this fight? Drum roll. And again, it's a similar prediction to what I had the first time they fought. I'm going Tom Aspinall in this fight. Look, I'd love Curtis Blaydes to win. He's a great guy. I think he's, grinded a lot. I think he gets a lot of crap from fans about the stutter and people thinking he has CTE and all this other nonsense. Listen, it would be a great story for Blaydes to win this, especially in Aspinall's backyard, but Aspinall's just too good. Like, I've identified certain fighters that I think are the real deal, fighters that do something a little bit extra, some fighters that, extremely well-rounded, and Aspinall fits that bill. Like, he does not have many weaknesses at all. And I think what, like I said, impressed me the most in his last fight was he stood toe-to-toe with Pavlovich, knowing he could get knocked out, and he still went out there and knocked him out. I think that's incredibly impressive. Blaydes fought Sergey Pavlovich, got knocked out in the first round, wasn't able to take him down. I don't see how Aspinall is going to be any easier than Sergey Pavlovich in that regard. So I'm going Aspinall second round knockout. I think Blaydes will survive the first round. I think he'll be a little bit more cautious. I think he'll be having sort of not flashbacks, but maybe reference that Pavlovich fight and think, okay, I just got to survive this round, and maybe in the second I can use my cardio and maybe get some timing down. But I think eventually Aspinall will find him. So the biggest thing for why I'm going Aspinall second round knockout is a couple things. All of Blaydes' losses have been by KO or TKO. Aspinall has knockout power. 71% of Aspinall's wins are by KO TKO. That's 10 of his wins are by knockout. I mentioned it there. The first fight was a bit of an injury. I know Blaydes got the win, but that was more of Aspinall getting injured as opposed to a legit win for Blaydes. I've mentioned it there. Aspinall too fast. Guy moves like a middleweight. He is extremely tough to catch. And like I said, even if Aspinall's stand-up is not going the way he wants, he can always try and take this to the ground and use that ground game. We saw Almeida take him down in his last fight. And you saw it there. Aspinall's got pretty decent takedown defense. Again, these takedown defense numbers for Aspinall are a little bit inflated because, there's a lot of fighters who not even attempted to try and take a takedown, but it's still very impressive. And I don't think with Blaydes' wrestling, he'll be able to get the fight there. Aspinall's younger. And like I said, I think Aspinall's just better everywhere. So I think Aspinall takes this one. The only X factor in this fight could be if Blaydes is able to utilize that wrestling. I don't think it'll happen here. And if he can't utilize the wrestling and the fight stays standing, I give that advantage to Tom Aspinall. And that's where I think Aspinall is going to eventually knock him out in the second round. So again, really excited for this one. Would love Blaydes to prove me wrong of all people. But I think Curtis Blaydes ends up losing this fight, and I think Tom Aspinall ends up winning. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who are you picking in this fight? What is your prediction? I want to know an official prediction for this one. We can discuss it here in the comments. And that's pretty much all I got to say here. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. I'm posting content on this channel every single day, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and give the video a like. It really does help with the algorithm. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time for another edition of Early Look.